Hello everybody, I'm Ard, and welcome to another episode of Minecraft Enigmatica 2 Expert. You might have remembered that last week I said I needed to clear out this area so that I could build something. Well, dun dun dun! That's not happening this week. Nope, sorry. But it's not because I don't have a plan as usual. It's because I figured out what I wanted to do and realized I don't have the materials. So I think what we're going to need to do is to make it so I can do it the lazy way today. And to do that, we need to clean up my tree farm. If you remember from an earlier episode, I set up a smallish tree farm to do strictly olive wood, to mainly produce olives for power production, as well as, just logs to have logs. But what I need are spruce and ironwood, and the farm that I have set up just does not support variety at all. It really just supports mass quantities of one thing, taking over its internal inventory. So if we come back into my tree farm, you might remember that I'm using the Forester from Cyclic, which has this big, huge inventory of saplings, but it doesn't allow you to lock into these slots or anything. So as we create trees, it's just going to keep shoving more and more olive saplings in here. We could potentially use XNet to limit the number in here, but it becomes very tricky because it doesn't like limiting the numbers of different things into the same inventory. You would need to use multiple channels piping different things in to get it to work, and which is just kind of clunky, and it's not what we want to do. So I think what we need to do is upgrade our system. And to do that, we're going to move into Industrial Foregoing setup, starting with the Plant Sower. So normally at this point when I'm setting up a farm, I'd be doing this with an actual crop farm, but that's not what I'm doing in this case. And I'll probably get around to that eventually, just because it makes maintaining larger farms a little bit easier. And I'll probably worry about it when I start doing mystical agriculture more, since we already have a fairly functional normal farm right now anyways. So the Plant Sower is a machine that basically does exactly what it says. It plants seeds. You place it one block below instead of how the Forester's on one block above, you put it one block below the dirt you want it to sow into. So this whole 5x5 area would be all dirt, including the center block, and it would be below that. And it lets you set up different quadrants that it will plant seeds in. So that's what we're going to do there. The next thing we want to look at is the Plant Gatherer. So the Gatherer will chop down your trees and gather your crop the same sort of way as a combination of these two were doing before, but it'll operate on the edge, kind of like the item collector is here. The third thing, which I may or may not do, is the Plant Fertilizer, which does exactly what it says it does. It fertilizes crops, and it can use it using either bone meal, which we can always grind up bones to do if we want to, the Industrial Foregoing's fertilizer, which, well, we're going to discuss that in a minute, or Forestry's fertilizer, which is created from all of the apatite that we have, but we're not generating, so we're not getting excess of right now. So the fertilizer we're probably going to use is from the animal sewer, which we're going to put in our animal farm. It's a machine that goes under your farm, kind of like the sower does. I can't remember if it has to be one block below or in the same general block, but it's a box that absorbs poop and funnels that into straight sewage. And from here, you pass that into the Sewage Composter, which, well, turns it into fertilizer. And then the fertilizer we can then pipe back into the plant fertilizer. So we will have a reoccurring source of fertilizer. I don't know how fast this will go with the number of animals we have. It might work better once I actually set up a bigger barn and some fields or something. But for now, we will see. And this will at least let it go a little bit faster. The other thing I'm going to do while I'm in here is I'm going to take these coke ovens, I'm going to upgrade them to the Immersive Tech Advanced Coke Oven, which works like the advanced blast furnace we created way back in one of the earliest episodes, which allows you to put preheaters on it to make the process go faster at the expense of electricity. The other thing you might notice is that, well, I never processed the creosote coming out of this at all. I was supposed to hook this up to a compression dynamo and help it power this general area. Given the mess of ducts that you see all the way through under here, replacing all of this with XNet will actually make this a little more self-sustainable long term. And I can possibly do some other things with some of the other stuff that I'm getting, like the iron berries that are going to come out of the ironwood trees. I'm able to process that into something useful as well. But for now, what I think I need to do is tear all this apart, raise this up a couple blocks so that I have room to work, and start setting things back up. Be right back. Well, you might notice that I'm not done, and it's because I discovered something really bad at the very start here. I shift right clicked that XNet connector onto the wall there while my hamster was riding on my shoulder. Do you know what happens when you do that? the hamster gets placed in the wall and suffocates. Take better care of your pets than I do, folks. Alright, so I have the basic setup for the tree farm itself done now. So as you can see, I still have it in the same 5x5 grid. I might expand it later, but for now this is getting it set up. What I have here are spruce, the slime saplings, ironwood, 1 oak, some olive trees, and 1 fir. You might notice that there are lead blocks blocking some of the paths here. It's because some of these trees require space to grow, like the fir back here. It can't have anything in the blocks surrounding it. Or in the case of the spruce, you can't have a 2x2, otherwise it'll try to grow a super large one, which cannot grow in this size room. There's one other thing that I forgot about while I was setting this up. If we look inside the plant gatherer, you can see that it has a fluid reservoir of sludge. If this fills up, this machine slows down, which isn't really that big a deal, given that we're only harvesting trees in a small field. Slowing it down doesn't really do anything. But the upside to this is that if you pass it through a sludge refiner like I added down here, and be aware, this thing, it's safe in this pack. In some others, and in some different versions of this that were outside of Industrial Foregoing, this thing radiates pollution and will hurt you. So you want to separate it sometimes away, but it's safe here. But if you open this up, you can see that it generates materials from the sludge as it destroys the sludge. And if we look at what it can create things like clay or dirt, which those are fine, but we can't generate those anyways, so that doesn't hurt. And then gravel, same thing, mycelium, podzol, all good things, and some sand, but it creates soul sand, which we needed a passive source of anyways. But for now, this was a happy little coincidence that allows us to get some stuff out of the system we hadn't otherwise. I do need to add some of these things into our drawer network, but we've got a little bit to wait on this because this doesn't process that quickly, and it will just stack up in here for a while. We can go fix that later. Anyways, now that I have step 1 done, it's time to go into the cow pen and add the machines to start creating fertilizer. And then we can start making these grow a bit faster. Okay, and so part 2 of my plan is now done. Now on the ground below me back here, you can see that I've got the animal sewer in place. If we look inside it, you can see that it's constantly processing. You're not seeing any sewage going here other than the slight blip, because down here, under where I have the animal sewer, I also have the sewage composter, which is constantly making fertilizer. This isn't getting pulled out yet because I don't have this in a drawer. I'm about to go slot that into my system outside and then go feed that into the actual tree farm. Okay, and as you can see, I now have the plant fertilizer in place, and the trees are growing much, much faster than they were before. If we click in here, you see that it's running. It ran out of fertilizer because my cows aren't producing it all that quickly, but if we put it in here, you can see that it just starts chewing through it very, very quickly. I could switch this to also chew up bone meal, but honestly, this does the job well enough and gets enough going that it's not really an issue, because now I have more output. Down here, instead of the big chest that I used for my wheat, you can see that I'm using a tiny chest. And the reason I'm doing that is because this only holds a stack of 16, which limits how much can be in here at any one time, so I'm not constantly pulling it out if for some reason we're backed up. And we have a bunch still downstairs that you can leave it in my main network for now, just not let it pile up here. So it just acts as basically a very tiny buffer chest before it pulls it into the fertilizer. So all in all, I think this is pretty successful for a very basic tree farm. My next step is to fix the coke ovens to properly produce charcoal, and then actually wire it up to a compression dynamo to give this whole thing some extra power and hopefully not just consume power, you know, like I had originally intended this to do, instead of the way I actually did it. My bad. Well, I got the rest of my tree farm set up, but, well, I kind of made a big, huge mess. So it turns out that breaking apart my coke oven allowed me to make 3 of the improved advanced coke ovens. The recipe from Immersive Tech requires only 2/3 as many of the blocks, which means if you had 2 already, you can then make 3. So I was able to do that. I added preheaters to all of them to add power, but because these things have 5 contact points, 1 power in each preheater, 1 output for the creosote, 1 output for the coal, which you notice I have a mini chest in front of them because for some reason XNet can't take the coal straight out of it, and 1 more slot on top to feed the wood in. So the problem with this is, however, My tree farm's not big enough to keep all 3 of these fed all the time. I might just need to remove the preheaters so I lower the power draw, though they're just not processing the coke that fast. Or maybe just remove 1 each, I don't even know. The other alternative would be to increase the size of my tree farm, which I can do, except if we go look at it over here, you remember that things like this fir sapling require extra space around it, and the spruce saplings require, you know, not being blocks of 2x2. So if we increase the size, well, the first sapling is still going to be pretty much one thing in its quadrant, and we're going to have to break up the spruce saplings and the olive. We're only going to cut a couple more trees, and these are what I'm using. So I need to think about what I'm going to do. I'm probably still going to increase the size just at least 1 more row to try to get some more olive trees out of this. But the reality is I might just need to pump some more fertilizer in here. So like if we toss the bone meal I've got in here, this should help a little bit and make it like speed it up a bit. But I worry that if I put all of the bones I'm getting from my mob farm into like a macerator or something, and constantly toss it in here, I'm just going to exhaust my bone supply because of how fast this churns through its fertilizer. So I don't know what the correct solution here is other than make a bigger farm and make more pooping animals. I don't know. You tell me, guys. I'm not entirely sure at this point. But I'm going to call this good because it is relatively self-sufficient. One of the things here is the compression dynamo does not run all the time. As you can see, it's out of power and it's out of here. This is helping to offset the power drop for this overall system. But if you see how I set it up in here, we come down to the compression dynamo. I have it extracting, but it's actually at priority 1. And if you look at the tunnel up here, I have that extracting at priority 0, which means it will pull from the dynamo first if it can, but if not, it will pull from my power grid. So we are eating up some eyes of ender now through my ender generator with this running at its full draw all the time now. Which isn't ideal, but it's not the worst thing on the planet. Well, I think this is at least a good stopping point because everything works now, so that's always a good thing, right? I lied. I'm incapable of not continuing to tinker. So as you can see, there's another orange dynamo there. That's a steam dynamo. And I put a resonator in here. Let's show you why. So in here, the resonator, I have charcoal turning into red coal. And we're using the red coal because depending on how much grid power you have, it significantly boosts the efficiency of the item in question. In this case, we now have coal that generates a 142K RF over its lifespan instead of, 18K. So a significant boost over what it was. And as you notice, we appear to be at a net positive now for power. This is going up. It's still drawing from the creosote, but it's using this as the primary now. So we're now at a net positive, and we're eventually going to fill this up because we're actually making this faster than we're using it. There will be excess charcoal still being piped out to our main network shortly. So I'm going to consider this a pretty big win, actually, because this didn't require a whole lot of extra work on my part to do, and I should have just done it from the start knowing that I was going to be getting charcoal out of it. I just forgot that the red coal existed. So while messing around with the stuff from Thermal Expansion, I realized there's something I do quite a bit, guys, that I don't think I've explicitly shown on camera. And it's one of the reasons why these villagers are so utterly valuable to me. I've spoken of the merits of like capturing a bunch of villagers and using them in the past, but here's another reason to add to this. So one of the things you're going to build quite a bit of in thermodynamics are transmission coils, things like the redstone transmission coil to build augments and to build machines with. At a quick look, it looks like the metallurgical confuser is probably the easiest way. It's just a bunch of redstone and a silver ingot to make that, yeah? Compared to, say, going to the atomic reconstructor and seeing HV wire coils, which are frankly kind of a pain to make. Except, well, if you have a leveled up electrician, you can just pay him some emeralds and buy your coils, and then you can go to your atomic reconstructor and just chuck it on the ground, and there's your coil. Just done. No one can around you. You can do them in large batches all at once just by tossing them all into the beam. All for a couple emeralds, which you should be getting out of your Civ farm anyways, or out of a villager trader device, or just manually trading stuff to your other villagers. So as a reminder, folks, capture and enslave all the villagers you can, especially the electricians. Yeah. So we have a fairly well-functioning tree farm now, or at least more diverse than the one that was here previously, and an actually functioning set of coke ovens that actually output their materials because they're not full of creosote now. And back there, a fairly good source of power, more than we had before. So all in all, it's been a pretty good day, guys. So if you made it this far in the video and you like what I'm doing, if you'd hit the like button or send me a comment to tell me what I'm doing well, or almost more importantly, what I'm not doing very well on, that would be fantastic. And as always, I'm Ard. Thank you for watching and have a nice day.